Another day, another live-action Disney remake. When the new Lilo and Stitch trailer came out, some viewers were annoyed that Disney keeps making movies like this, instead of focusing on new stories. But some people felt this movie seemed alright, despite its changes. In fact, this might be a step in the right direction for the live-action remakes. Maybe this time, Disney finally got it right. But after its release, the general consensus was that Lilo and Stitch was underwhelming or even flat-out horrible. But is it really? Lilo and Stitch is a beloved film about non-conventional families and finding a sense of belonging while feeling like an outsider. It's a perfect blend of heart and some edge. So how did this remake fare? To understand the 2025 Lilo and Stitch better, I'm going to contextualize the original animated movie. But if you just want to see the review, you can skip to this part of the video. Speaking of videos, Descript is an editing software that allows anyone to create smooth, professional-looking content, even if you've never edited a video before. With its text-to-speech and green screen features, you have endless opportunities to bring your vision to life. You can click my affiliate link in the description to explore your creativity. Stitch was created in 1985 by animator Chris Sanders, who originally envisioned him as a children's book character living in a forest. This concept was shelved until 1997, when Executive Vice President of Disney Feature Animation, Thomas Schumacher, suggested that Disney should make a film like Dumbo, which involved a relatively small-scale production. Though the story was planned to take place in Kansas, or somewhere else remote and Midwestern, it was later decided to set it on the Hawaiian island of Kauai, a similarly remote location that Disney never depicted before. Lilo and Stitch employed a unique marketing tactic, where Stitch messed up some iconic Disney moments, signaling that this is not the typical Disney movie. It was fast-paced, modern, and delightfully rebellious. And it ended up working, because in the summer of 2002, Lilo and Stitch was successful in the box office, and even became a franchise. This movie sparked 4 sequel films, a TV series, an anime adaptation, and most importantly, that addictive Reuben sandwich game. The character of Stitch is also a merchandising dream, especially in international markets, and not capitalizing on this would be a big missed opportunity. It was announced in 2018 that a live-action Lilo and Stitch movie is in production. Gontu, the antagonist in the original film, was almost going to be in the remake, but was written out and replaced by another character. We'll get to that later. This was initially going to be released straight to Disney+, but was decided to be a theatrical release as it was seen as having strong box office potential. Much like the original film's marketing, we saw Stitch being a nuisance towards other live-action Disney remakes. See what they did there? And based on the trailer, this movie seemed alright, and I could somewhat appreciate that the story is being told for a new generation. I'm gonna look over the plot of Lilo and Stitch and some aspects that caught my eye, so be aware there are spoilers ahead. We're gonna look into 2025's Lilo and Stitch. So now, let's get started. The story begins on the planet Turo, with Dr. Jamba Jukiba being convicted by the United Galactic Federation for illegally creating the genetic abomination Experiment 626. This experiment is indestructible and is built only to cause chaos. Before coming into this movie, I had no clue that the new Jamba is voiced by Zach Galifianakis, so I was slightly jump scared when I heard him talk. But I didn't think too much about this character because I was more distracted by how terrible of an introduction this is. There is no build-up, no tone building, no sense of atmosphere. We just get thrown into this scene. I don't get the trend of trying to end the intro as fast as possible. Like, the first scenes in a film are some of the most substantial, and I don't get what the creators were going for. Afterwards, Stitch gets out of his imprisonment and escapes on a spaceship. The Federation sees that he's heading towards Earth. When 626 is around water, he'll become heavy and will drown. Seems like a bad idea for him to go to a planet that is 71% water. But it turns out he's projected to land on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. The Grand Councilwoman offers Jamba his freedom if he goes to Hawaii and captures 626, with the help of fan favorite Agent Plinkly. We're then introduced to Lilo swimming in the ocean, giving sandwiches to fish, a classic. Now, I don't necessarily want to compare this movie to the original too much. I don't want to keep doing the "they did this way better the first time" thing, but I'll egregiously do that here. In the original scene, Lilo's introduction felt like a ballet. We saw the ocean, the dance class, with the tone-building song of He Mele no Lilo as she rushes to the studio. But in this film, too much is happening at once. Lilo frees some chickens from a farm and gets yelled at. Then there's a cut to Nani leaving her job and her car not working. The movement also doesn't match the tempo of the song. But anyways, Lilo barely makes it on time for her recital. Things seem to be going fine until Lilo gets pushed by the resident mean girl, so she pushes her off the stage. Everyone is weirdly calm about this. Nani doesn't show up on time, so she races home only to find herself locked out of the house, while Lilo lies on the floor with Heartbreak Hotel playing on vinyl. Right at that moment, the social worker arrives, played by Tina Carrere, who also voiced Nani in the original film. This welfare check goes very badly, with the help of Lilo. After the social worker leaves, they get into an argument, which is vaguely played for laughs, but I did like how she had the kapu, or forbidden sign on her door like in the original. Nani meets up with her next door neighbor, Tutu, played by Amy Hill, who voiced Mrs. Hasegawa in the Lilo and Stitch TV series, and was also Queen Miss Kwan. She gives some exposition about Nani's interest in marine biology school, and how she should definitely go. Throughout the film, we're told that marine biology was always Nani's dream, but she had to set that aside in order to care for Lilo. That being said, we don't really see her being interested in marine biology. If anything, she's more into surfing, but I guess a career in science has more job security than sports. She's thinking ahead. As Lilo and Nani reconcile, Stitch crash lands on Earth, and Lilo confuses this for a shooting star. She asks for a friend and an angel, unaware that one is on the way, albeit in an unconventional package. Stitch now has an entirely new playground for his mischief. His first target is a wedding, which is stressful enough without a destructive koala alien barging in. After messing up the wedding enough for his liking, he gets hit by a tour bus. The note I had for this section just said, "Awful pacing." I can't remember exactly what prompted that, but like I said before, this movie feels like you're watching it at double speed. The next day, Jamba and Plinkley check into a hotel, where they create human clones to freely continue their search for Stitch. I get that in the original, they just wear thinly veiled disguises, and the joke is that they're obviously aliens, and no one questions it. Some fans didn't like that this time they appear human, but personally, I don't mind this change. Allegedly this happened because Disney didn't want to spend too much money on animation. You can say this is an example of working with what you have, but I think Zach Galifianakis and Billy Magnussen were a lot of fun to watch. After that, Stitch is taken to a dog shelter. I guess he was confused for some form of Pomeranian. Tutu tells Lilo that she should get a dog, knowing that she wants a friend. Stitch is trying to avoid being captured by the aliens, so he does what he can to look more like a dog. And Lilo immediately knows that he's the best one. Nani is not so thrilled about a dog joining their home when she already has a lot on her plate, but the CIA knows about Stitch coming to Earth. And here we get the return of Cobra Bubbles. Stitch is very excited to cause havoc to a big city. The possibilities are endless. He steals the mean girl's electric toy car and looks for a Metropolitan, but this idea is ruined because he's on an island. There's another sequence where he wrecks stuff at a beach, and at this point, this movie really starts to pick up. The two start bonding at Nani's job. They have a water fight and connect with their rebelliousness. After another montage, it's established that Nani has a crush on David. Lilo knows this because she's been reading Nani's text messages. Even though David seems interested, this potential subplot goes nowhere. Maybe something was going to happen between them, but some last-minute changes happened. That seems to be a reoccurring thing in 2020's Disney. Later that night, Stitch throws fire at a table. Nani's rude boss, played by Jason Scott Lee, who voiced David in the original, fires her. She tells Lilo that Stitch needs to go because he ruins everything he comes across. Plus, she's not even sure he's a dog. Lilo insists that Stitch is Ohana. Nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Stitch is allowed to stay, but he almost tears apart Lilo's room. But after she puts a lei on him, he finally calms down. Leis are a traditional gesture of aloha, and when putting this on him, Lilo is accepting Stitch and welcoming him to her family. This is when she shows her family album and teaches him about hula. This scene is sweet. The next morning, Cobra Bubbles is at the door, and we get some repeat dialogue from the animated film. But what's different here is that he gets a piece of Stitch's hair. After a day of Nani looking for a job, and Stitch messing everything up, she finally gets work as a surfing instructor, which sparks the Hawaiian roller coaster ride scene, where Lilo, Stitch, and Nani surf together. We see Nani on the water, and she's really good. While at this point of the story, the scene is meant to reflect the bond of family, and if David was there, friendship as well. But in this film, it's just another scene. The aliens are on a jet ski, and everyone falls off the board. Lilo goes to the hospital, and while the state can pay for her bills, it looks like Nani will no longer be her primary caregiver. The story takes a turn for the weird when Jamba no longer works with Plinkly, and suddenly becomes the villain? Alright, Stitch feels like he doesn't belong, because Nani said that after he became a part of the family, everything went from bad to worse, possibly feeling it's his fault they're going to live separately. On their last day of living together, Lilo is nowhere to be found. As Nani looks for her, she's weirdly calm about her little sister disappearing. But Lilo is only looking for Stitch, and finds him at the dog shelter. After they hug, a portal opens, and Jamba shows up in full alien mode. After returning home, a chase fight happens, with Lilo throwing some snarky comebacks. No one messes with her or her dog. The fight ends with Lilo and Stitch being on Jamba's spaceship. They fight some more, and Stitch defends himself. He's not an abomination. He's cute and fluffy. The ship lands into the ocean, and Lilo tries to bring Stitch to shore, but water makes him heavy. All he can do is sink. Lilo is saved, but because nobody gets left behind, Nani goes in the water to save him. David was there as well. I'm not sure why she had to save him on her own. There's a whole sequence where Stitch isn't waking up, but then he wakes up. Yay! While the ground councilwoman shows up to take Stitch away, he gives the famous speech of how his family is small and broken, but still good. The councilwoman sentences him to a life on Earth. And I really thought this wasn't going to happen, but it turns out that Nani won't be taking care of Lilo, but she can live with the next door neighbor. I guess this is the best option because Nani flies away from marine biology school. Their house is rebuilt, and Plinkly stays on Earth, likely having a future as one of those New York City fashion influencers. While FaceTiming Lilo, Nani uses a portal to come into her room. They go to sleep and tell each other, "Good night, sister." And Stitch says, "Good night, sisters." The end. Like I mentioned before, this was planned to be a Disney Plus film, and I can definitely see it. The theatrical grandness and spectacle is greatly toned down with its quick-paced editing and random scene cuts. There's also an awkward direction with some of the characters. Even though there's a new, albeit less interesting, social worker character, Cobra Bubbles is still here, but him only working for the CIA doesn't add much to the plot. We also see him taking a piece of Stitch's hair, and if I'm correct, that moment is never mentioned again. Jamba being the villain of the story just happens out of nowhere. I don't recall anything that builds up to him as a straight-up villain. When fans have stated that they want to see Disney villains again, I don't think this is what they had in mind. Especially since Jamba wasn't evil in the original film. Maybe a new character could have created Stitch. But director Dean Fleischer Camp said that Jamba being evil was to reflect a terrible delinquent father figure for Stitch. I feel like this complicates Stitch's story arc of not only finding belonging, but healing through a chosen family instead of escaping a harmful one. And most importantly, Nani no longer caring for Lilo takes away the point of Ohana. I know technically Lilo is just next door, and they can see each other anytime, but it makes it seem that separation is a solution instead of finding strength as a family in a time of hardship. And yes, Nani has to fly away for school, but I'm sure there's at least one marine biology school not far from where she is, and Lilo can temporarily stay with the neighbors if Nani can't be with her. But in the middle of these weird changes, there's also a vibe that we're expected to have seen the original film, and if you're creating a remake that ideally can hold up on its own, this isn't the best direction to take. Like, we see a shot of Scrump, but we don't get the context of this doll. In the animated film, all the other girls have what appears to be a pastiche on Barbies, while Lilo has a doll she made herself and gave a backstory to. Through Scrump, we get a sense of Lilo's eccentricity as well as her home struggles, where the only person providing for her is her older sister. There's also some identical line-by-line dialogue from the original film, like with Lilo meeting Cobra Bubbles, Stitch saying his family is small and broken but still good, and when he plays a record with his mouth, though the spit is slightly changed with Nani not looking at him. At best, the writers were doing one of those remember this moments in remakes, but at worst, they didn't put any effort to write something new. But the new Lilo and Stitch has some redeeming qualities. Jamba and Plinkly as humans were the best part of this movie. Every scene they were in was a lot of fun. I like how they awkwardly tried to blend in on Earth. Like in the elevator, they see everyone around them holding phones, and they just pretend to hold a phone despite not having one. And when asked where they were from, they just said, Earth. I also like the reoccurring joke of Lilo confusing marine biology for the Marines. And I thought the scenes of her and Stitch becoming closer friends were a lot of fun. Some moments are funny, some are wholesome, but I can't say this is something I'd want to watch again. I wouldn't recommend this movie as something you have to see, but if you're having a day off with no set schedule, you did some shopping, got a caramel latte, and you want to see a movie just 'cause, this would be an alright choice. Lilo and Stitch is currently the 6th highest grossing film worldwide, and so far has made more than 3 times its budget. Financially, it's a hit. Content-wise, it's fine. But here's a real question. Does this movie need to exist? I get that Disney is really cashing in on that nostalgia bag, but this doesn't need to be a Lilo and Stitch movie. Stitch could have been a goblin or sea creature or anything of the sort. I see no problem with Disney methodically copying themselves. They've been doing that for a long time. But big studios are so scared of financial losses, they're going to put out the safest, most secure material they can, and works based on intellectual property are easier to market and attract an audience. There are some films I plan on reviewing in the future, but I'm announcing that I'll be pausing reviews of live-action Disney remakes indefinitely. There's only so many times I can say, this movie was alright, but the original was so much better. But who knows what the future will hold. And that's all I have for 2025's Lilo and Stitch. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.